Friday night.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting today, Tuesday, July 9th. And if we'd stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we get started this morning, are there any adjustments or changes to today's agenda? Any changes or additions?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, at this point, we have our public comment period. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak this morning? Any members of the public who wish to speak? And have commissioners received any written comments?
No.
All right. We will move forward then with our consent agenda. And are there any items a commissioner wishes to pull this morning? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Is there?
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and support. Anything further? For our consent agenda, anything? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'd like to point out that we do have a quorum of commissioners here today, but we are missing Commissioner Mills and Commissioner Storley. They have excused absences. All right, as we move forward, we have our Cook County Sheriff, Pat Eliason, here with us today, and he is here to talk about the Sheriff's Residency policy. So we welcome you. You please step up to the microphone.
Thank you. Good morning. So I wanted to discuss the residency policy for the sheriff's office. The reason I want to discuss this is for recruitment and retention of staff. It's getting very difficult to buy a home in Cook County. It's getting very difficult to find a place to rent for some of the folks that we are trying to hire for the sheriff's office. So I thought that we could open up the residency policy to allow people to live as far as Silver Bay into Lake County. And this would mean also taking their squads home with them because they are on call. As you can see from the document that I submitted, that currently the residency policy is that you have to live inside Cook County. And when I, excuse me, did the mileage on Google Maps from the very end of the Gunflint Trail to the U.S. Port of Entry is 99 miles, and that would be within policy to live that far from that distance. From Silver Bay to the U.S. Port of Entry on Google Maps is 99 miles. So, there may have been some discussion about, putting extra miles on squads and that, but if someone were to live those distances, they would be driving that far anyhow. This would obviously enhance our recruitment abilities. It would also allow staff to find affordable housing at the moment. Currently, we have one deputy who lives in Finland. He leaves his squad in Tofty right now. We just hired another deputy who lives in Silver Bay. If we can't get the resolution changed, of course, we'd have to try to figure something out with him. Hopefully, we would be able to retain him. I don't know. So in 2005, I guess I'll back up a little bit. When I had consulted County Attorney Hicken about changing this policy, she had advised me that since it was a sheriff's office policy, I could just change that myself. Then we discovered that there was a resolution attached to that policy, specific policy, which was voted on by the county board in 2005. So after further discussions with the county attorney, we decided that I need to come to the board, and I don't know if another resolution needs to be voted on, or if this, or the former resolution needs to be rescinded. I don't know. That would be the county attorney's call on that one. So I guess that's where I'm at right now.
Any questions or comments for Sheriff Eliason?
Well, I have a comment.
Go ahead. Thank you, Commissioner.
So in the current resolution in 2005, it says 38 miles, not just live in Cook County. That's, be it resolved, right there. Sheriffs shall reside within 38 miles of the new law enforcement center. So, I understand living at the end of the Gumplin Trail, but I have a hard time with this one saying that you can live in another county. I understand the dilemma with housing. Lots of people are experiencing that. I have concerns about taxpayer dollars leaving the county, families leaving the county, and then joining new communities to volunteer their time, send their kids to school in a different district. And then talking about the wear and tear on vehicles and the cost of mileage and gasoline. There's an added cost to the taxpayers of Cook County. And we are getting more housing, hopefully, soon, next year. So I hate to make a long-term decision based on what hopefully is a short-term need, and I get it. $360,000 for a house is ridiculous, but that's what happens when people of means come in and can do that for their second home. It really hurts all of us that are trying to live here. So I really thought hard about this one, but I just cannot support saying sheriffs can live outside the county. So that's my comment.
All right. Commissioner White, any remarks you'd like to make?
How many people apply? I mean, you say we have one currently who's in Silver Bay, but it's kind of sounds as though it's dependent on him. He needs housing.
Correct.
So,
Well, excuse me, he has a house in Silver Bay.
oh,
I mean, like I said, if this doesn't go through, we would have to figure something out, and, sorry, and, yeah, I guess we'd just take it from there. I can't see what would happen in the future.
what would be an option? Like you said, the person that lives in Finland leaves his vehicle down closer to the shore. Is there any way to live in Silver Bay and leave the squad car?
We would have to find a secure place to leave the squad car. We're fortunate enough for the deputy who lives in Finland, his mother lives in Tofte, so he can leave his squad at her house. This other deputy that we have training currently, he doesn't have any family or any connections in Cook County, so I mean, we would want to make sure that if he has to leave his squad in Cook County down towards the county line, that it's in a secure place.
So, but the townships have garages. I mean, don't they have places, I don't know.
I don't know what the
That could be secured? That,
could be. I don't know what the capacity is in those garages right now. I have no
Fire
idea.
trucks.
oh, yeah,
And-
fire trucks take up a lot of space.
I guess I'd like to share, I understand the remarks, Commissioner Johnson, that you made, and I understand it's a cost to the taxpayers, but I also think that there's a cost if we're lacking in public safety. And that's a grave concern that I would have, if we're not able to secure deputies. And other counties have very similar types of policies. And we're in a market where there's so much competition for law enforcement. It's just incredible. And maybe it is a temporary thing till we have more housing, but I think we need to look at supporting this for the purpose of public safety.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So
Administrator.
in terms of, so you have the ability to change the policy, and that could be done at any time. So in terms of the question about this establishing a policy for a long time, that's not necessarily true, right? I mean, you could, for example, if we do get access to housing, when the Gunflint View project is completed, this policy could be rescinded or changed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Attorney Hicken, any remarks you'd like to make regarding this?
Yes, Chair Sullivan, what I would suggest if somebody would like to make a motion consistent with the sheriff's request, that that motion include rescinding resolution number 2005-89, and then state your desire. I mean, you could either make a motion to set the residency requirement at 20 miles past the county border, or you could just turn the discretion back over to the sheriff to set his own residency policy.
All right, thank you for that. Other questions for either Sheriff Eliason or for Attorney Hicken?
Sheriff
White.
Eliason has a budget for vehicles, for mileage. It's all part of your budget. It's all part of your budget. So there's a deputy that owns property in Silver Bay.
Correct.
So I would think that if there could be I don't know. I agree with Commissioner Johnson. I agree with Commissioner Sullivan. I am not being wishy-washy. I see it both. We really need the people and their kids. We need our community to be strong, and it's ideal to have people that work here live here because it enhances the community. It gives the employee a better sense of the community. But if they can't live in their car, I think there probably is an ordinance against living in your car in this county. So if they can't find housing, or they really want to be a deputy sheriff, I guess I'm more inclined to make this be a temporary, yes, absolutely, because we need good people in this county to work here. I'm not so concerned about criminals sweeping in and taking me away if the deputy's in Silver Bay, but could it be such that in X amount of time, in a year or 2 year, that deputy or that person would need to secure housing in Cook County, or a residence in Cook County? I'm just throwing it out. I don't know.
I think that could be part of I don't know, what would you call it?
Madam Chair? There could be a motion that the policy be reviewed in 2 years? Or are you saying that there would be a condition of employment that the deputy establish permanent residency in Cook
I
County
think
in 2 years?
the latter, yes, if they could. But then what if they can't? Then what do we do?
Administrator.
And I think the other thing is, there's no guarantee that in 2 years, the cost differential of housing here versus in Lake County will be any better, you know? And I think that's one of the primary reasons that the sheriff is suggesting this, because it is so much more expensive to purchase property here. And, I think it's good to have some provision that we look at this again in a year or two. But the basic fact of that cost difference, I'm not sure that's going to change a lot. It certainly could, but who knows?
I'd like to also bring up the fact that if we're unable to secure deputies who potentially could live out of the county, the deputies who are here are working overtime. That's an overtime budget cost, and it also leads to burnout. And I'm very concerned about the deputies we currently have in the county that are putting in many, many hours for the purpose of public safety and making sure we have somebody on it at all times. That is a concern I have. Commissioner Johnson.
I have a question for our county attorney. Is it possible to have a motion that suspends but doesn't remove Resolution 2005-89, but suspends it for 2 years?
Yeah, I think the effect would be the same. With either, setting it for review in 2 years or suspending that resolution for 2 years, what you'll have to have is follow-up. We need to have a system in which somebody is triggered to put it in front of the board again. It's a little complicated, but I think either way is good.
Put it on our calendar.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Administrator Yorkie, I guess that falls to you then. How do you track what we do and say that we want to?
I could do that. I should point out it's not my policy.
It's our policy.
It's the sheriff's policy.
Oh,
I mean,
But as far as
But,
board
yeah.
review
I mean,
is
we-
what I mean, that's
we-
your
I can
purview.
certainly put a tickler on my calendar, and we can come back to that in 2 years if that's the desire.
I'd feel more comfortable than just saying, you know what, we're going to be in Aspen, Colorado for the rest of our lives. I think we are, but I want a trigger to say, let's have a community discussion about what's happening in our community. And we cannot afford to only have workers living in Silver Bay, regardless of what job you have. That's just not it's not sustainable.
and we have many people that work in this county, quite a few people that live in this county that work in this county that live in Silver Bay or down the shore beyond the county line. And it has been approved years ago when the head of Public Health and Human Services, Sue Footer, she did not live here, though she was a department head. So it's the 24-hour on-call thing that makes it more difficult.
Correct. The on-call, excuse me, the response. So that's, I mean, if I wasn't concerned about them taking their squad cars home, I mean, the precedent has already been set with county staff that they do live other places than Cook County. But it's a squad car thing that kind of ties it into, and I understand what Commissioner Johnson was talking about. I mean, that I've actually struggled with myself to bring this to the board, but for my staff and for my office, it's the best thing that I can do right now.
So given our discussion, I'd like to make a motion to rescind 2005-89 for the purpose of allowing the sheriff for 2 years to develop and utilize his policy, and then a review at 2 years, so July of 2026.
That was your motion?
Temporary rescind the policy for 2 years with a review in July of 2026.
May I just ask for clarification of the difference between suspend and rescind? Is there a difference?
Should I word that differently?
I don't think either is a very standard
Right.
motion.
Well, we're doing something out of the box again.
As long as your intent is clear. So, I think suspend or temporarily rescind, again, they have the same effect.
Okay. So let's
Just
say
wanna-
temporarily rescind and a 2-year review of this.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Well, I'll second that. But then when we get to the 2 years' time, now, of course, we'll all remember this in 2 years.
I've got a reminder on my calendar for April 30th, so. for what
Okay.
that's worth.
So what the numbers, the change in numbers on your budget for transportation and all, just to see, and will it make any difference if we keep it or not? No, I mean, we need to have employees here. So, we need to have people working in the county. So it would just be, at this moment in time, I'm thinking that in 2 years, I'll really want to know what those numbers are. And I'll still be here in 2 years, so. So I'm going to write it down somewhere, so in 2 years. But I think that would be helpful
I'll
because,
put it on my calendar and share my calendar with you.
okay. So, yes. Okay, I'm ready to vote.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. We appreciate
Thank you.
you trying to figure out how to do this in difficult times. All right, our next item is regarding our jail and Central Square interface. And I see that we have more members of our department here. Good morning, Ben.
Morning.
Who's keeping us safe? They're all here.
Thank you for having me. So I wanted to talk about a new program that I've been looking at for the jail, and it's Guardian RFID is the company. And what it is it's a software program that basically keeps track of well-being checks for inmates that we have at the jail. They also have a separate program that monitors medication. Our current system that we're using, we call it the DEGI system. We've had it for, I want to say, at least 15 years. What we've noticed is it's not working as well anymore. It's
No,
missing.
not at all.
We're missing
Thank you.
well-being checks just because it's not, the sensors that we use are not triggering. I guess maybe to back up a little bit, how our well-being checks have to work for meeting the Department of Corrections 2911 rules is that we have to do well-being checks at least every 30 minutes. If the person has any suicidal ideology, mental health issues, substance abuse issues where maybe they're withdrawing from drugs or alcohol, we have to do more well-being checks. They don't give a specific time. Usually it's 15 minutes instead of 30 minutes. Department of Corrections, this is one of their biggest things that they look at when they do an audit or an inspection is checking the well-being checks, and they go through months of checks just to see if we're meeting that 30 minutes. If for some reason we're not, we have to make sure that I review why we missed that check, why it was late. Sometimes after going through all of it, what we're finding is that just the DEGI missed. We're checking cameras, we see that the dispatcher went out and actually did the check, but we have to also catch that on camera, and what we've been noticing is occasionally the cameras are not, they're motion sensitive, so if the person's just in their cell sleeping, some of the cameras don't always catch the dispatcher stepping out there, just the way it's angled, and so we rely on that DEGI to trigger that time, showing that they were out there, because they have to physically go out and touch this little sensor on the wall that shows that they actually went out there, did the check. The other part of it is every time they do a check, in order to keep track of it in our CAD system or our jail management system, is they have to manually enter well-being check stating that, this person was checked on, they were in their cell, they were in the day room, laying on their right side. The biggest thing is breathing, that they're not having any kind of health condition that they need to be checked on. And so I've just looked at this program. It's been used in most of the jails in our region. And just basically an upgrade to what we currently have. The other part is the medication log. Now, I know I put it in here that they actually don't have it available yet in this system. They're hoping to have it this summer. And so with the quote, it was free for the first year just because basically I think they want to test it out, make sure it's working. My plan was to use our current system and that system just to make sure that we're not missing that. But even in our current JMS system, I had to build a report because the system doesn't really have a way to track medication coming in and going. It's able to monitor when you give the medication to an inmate and keep track of that, but we also, by 2911 rules, have to keep track of every pill coming in and then make sure that, okay, we gave them 10 doses, they came in with 30, they need to be going out with 20. And there was no way to keep track of that, so we had to actually make a separate report in order to keep track of that. And so I'm just looking at ways to try to streamline everything, make it a little bit easier on our dispatch staff. The other part is usually we just have a little handheld timer that they set for 24, 25 minutes. Timer goes off, okay, it's time to do my next check. The catch is they turn off that timer, they get ready to get up, and then the phone rings. So then they stop what they're doing, answer the phone. Maybe it's an emergency, it's a medical, whatever. Then they forget to go out and actually do that check. And with this system, it can be set up differently where, say that 24, 25 minutes, there'll be a short alarm stating, okay, you need to do this check. It can be set up for then, say, 28 minutes, an alarm starts going off, and it'll keep going off until you actually do that check. So it's a second reminder that you need to get out there and check on this person and make sure that their well-being is good. And so I guess that's what I'm looking for with this program. I know there's a couple of different quotes in here. One of them is for the program itself. The other one is an interface for our CAD system. And what that'll do is that'll cut down on the dispatcher's time because it'll automatically, instead of going out, doing the check, coming back to the computer, typing in that they did a well-being check, it'll all work seamlessly. They do the check and it actually just sends it wirelessly to the program. And they could basically pick, again, if they were in their cell, if they're in the day room, laying on their left side, right side, breathing. It just gives them any options that we want to program to just enter in, click send, automatically sends it to our CAD system. So then there's not that doubling up on doing the check, then having to enter it, and just remembering those steps. And then as far as an inspection or an audit goes, it also helps that the times are all streamlined together too, because usually there's a couple minute gap here from the time they do the check to the time they enter it in the system. And so again, if one looks like it's late, I have to go in and just make sure that all the times are within those 30 minutes, and if not, why. And I guess our biggest concern is if we start missing more and more checks, which I'll say we haven't, but the concern is that if it does happen, we lose our license for the jail, and then every arrest we make, we're transporting to Lake County. Again, that's an extreme, but the DOC has the right to do that, and one of the biggest things they look at are these well-being checks as part of that inspection. So I guess just open up if anybody has any questions for me.
Deputy Hallberg, I just really appreciate you looking into this. I love the fact that the alarm continues. We all know when we hear an alarm or a signal, it annoys us if it continues, and we're going to pay attention to that. I like the fact that you have two systems in place for a period of time, and that these will talk to one another. To me, it seems like a very good expenditure. Other commissioners. Commissioner White.
Couple of things for the listening public. Is there only one person at a time on the clock that does the wellness checks? And what else does that person, the dispatcher, is required to do this?
Yes. So our dispatchers are also our jailers. Currently, it depends on, right now we're not counting Lindsay as she's kind of our backup. But currently, we have 4 full-time dispatchers, which one is in training, so they can't be on their own right now. So normally, if we have our full staff, which is 6, I want to say it's 12 hours a day we would have 2 people on. 12 hours a day we'd only have 1 person on. And again, that's if nobody's taking vacation, because 2 of those 6 are considered what we call like vacation replacements. So they would be covering for someone taking time off. But if nobody's taking time off, they would be a second staff person to be available. And so the idea when we do have 2 on is that really they kind of split up the duties. One would be dispatching primarily, one would be jailing primarily. But they're also able to back up if calls are coming in. They can be a second dispatcher. But right now, I want to say even the last probably year and a half that we've been short-staffed, and so it's pretty much been 1 person on every shift. Lindsay's available, when she's working. If calls are coming in, she hears the phone ringing, she can just step out from her desk, be that second person to jump in and help take calls, do a well-being check if needed. But primarily it's 1.
Well, I guess even the bigger question is, do we always have somebody in a jail cell?
No.
No, often there's nobody, so.
Correct.
And then this was something that I was just learned about, that if we have somebody that's being held in one of our jail cells, we are responsible for their well-being.
Correct.
Right, that's why we check on them. But if they are also requiring medication for diabetes, what I was told, now I guess I'm asking for confirmation, that we need, our staff does the injections?
Per policy, and it's approved by the 2911 rules, the inmate will do their own injection, but we supply them with the insulin, the syringe. They dose it themselves. We basically just monitor it. So if they give themselves the wrong dose or something, then we're going to be contacting the hospital to determine what the next steps are if the person needs to be brought in. As far as like pill medications, things like that, the jailer gets those set up and then brings them out to the inmate to take their medications.
Other
Yes.
questions? Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, have you talked to the IT? Did they sign off and say this is going to work with whatever our systems currently are and there's no issues with that?
Yes, I talked with Kirk Oberg, and he stated everything looked good. Also, let me see, I think it was Pine County, Carlton, and Lake County. We're all in the same jail management system, same CAD system, so they all already use the program.
And how long have they had it, do you know?
I talked with Carlton about this probably back in 2018, I want to say.
So, and they seem to be happy with it and
Yes.
it's working for them. My next question is about the costs then. You say it's coming out of the line item 6280, which has $136,000 in it for 2024.
Correct.
What did you plan on using that for?
Well, that is, and it's the hardest part about the jail is the unknown is, I kind of threw some numbers together with our bookings and, back in 2019, we had 163 bookings. And so that, again, the stay for us, we can only have someone for up to 72 hours. That doesn't count weekends, holidays. So the stays kind of can be anywhere from 1 to 3 days. Our bookings this year are down quite a bit. I think we're at 20 so far this year. COVID dropped it down a little bit just because of really not wanting people in a confined space back then.
So that 136,000 is used for,
That's used for paying for inmate housing at other jails, pays for medical. So while someone's in our facility, if any medications are prescribed while they're in our custody, we have to pay for those. Any trips to the ER for whether it's withdrawal symptoms, mental health, we have to pay for that as well. And so that all comes out of that budget. You know, one of the big things that, again, I talked about with the well-being checks are sometimes that we have to up those more frequent checks for mental health issues. One of the things in our bookings is we do a survey that's required by the DOC for mental health. And so far this year, out of 20 bookings, 9 have scored high enough to need or at least look into further mental health care. So about 45%. I want to say on average, probably the last 6 years, it's been about a 30%. And that doesn't mean that someone has to go to the ER and be checked out. It might be that we ask them to contact a crisis line if they want to talk to somebody. It could be as simple as that, but we do sometimes just determine that person needs to be checked out by a doctor before they're approved to come into the jail, and so we're taking them over to the ER, and so that's part of those costs.
okay. I just thought that was a different line item, but,
Yep.
okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Other questions or comments?
So,
Commissioner White.
clarification, so if they test out at needing some mental health, not evaluations, but help, is Cook County Public Health contacted about this? Or how does the process work? Or is it just through the clinic and then the clinic identify or lets other agencies know? Or do they not speak to each other at all? Is this all confidential information?
Initially, I would say no. You know, occasionally even an arrest before they even make it to the booking room, the deputy just decides that they need to go to be checked out at the hospital, and so they go directly to the ER. Some of that goes through the court process while they, and it's not necessarily like meeting the Department of Corrections where they say that there's maybe a mental health issue there. I say that would be a little bit different than maybe what the courts
Okay.
deal with. But we mainly just work with the ER, and the ER will determine if they don't feel that they're safe to be in a jail facility, then, we work with the hospital to determine what the next steps are. Now, the catch with that is because they're technically under arrest and in our custody, that we have to have a deputy there with them at all times unless the ER determines the next step, and whether that's going to a separate facility, that's not a jail, it's kind of up to the doctor at that point.
Thank you.
Good question. Any other discussion, questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the purchase of inmate monitoring software from Guardian RFID and Central Square Interface in the amount of $14,731.55.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Is there support?
Yes, I support.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Deputy Hall.
Thank you.
All right, we have had a request to jump forward to item 8B. Attorney Hickman.
And Madam Chair, before Molly starts, I just wanted to mention, we do have from North Shore Health, we've got EMS Director Carla Pank out here this morning.
Right.
And that's why I was hoping we could get to this item next so that we can let her get on her way, because I know she's very busy.
All right. We'll move forward with item 8B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The legislature has granted counties sums that are meant to go towards public safety. And this is a one-time grant. The definitions in the statute of what this covers were pretty broad. Cook County was granted $179,095. What we did after becoming aware of that grant is to reach out to, first consulted with the sheriff about any needs his department had. And after determining that they didn't have significant needs, we each of James and Sheriff Eliason and myself reached out to all of the kind of stakeholders in public safety that we were aware of who serve the county, and invited them to bring forward proposals on how to spend this public safety money. So, for example, I contacted the Violence Prevention Center, James contacted the ambulance, the sheriff contacted the fire departments, is my understanding. And kind of shockingly, only 2 of these agencies came forward and said, we need that money. So we had the Violence Prevention Center and Carla Pankow from the ambulance came in person to present their proposals to the 3 of us. And we found both of them to be legitimately needed. The Violence Prevention Center had a significant cut along with all victim services programs nationwide because of a cut in federal funding. The Minnesota legislature did partially fund a kind of a backup to try to fill that gap, but it seems like it's going to be pretty insignificant, and it's going to take a while to get, and it's going to first go to culturally specific programs, which Violence Prevention Center is not. So their shortfall in funding was $105,000, if I recall correctly. We've asked the board to approve funding $100,000 to the Violence Prevention Center to fill their gap, and $68,600 to North Shore Health for the purchase of equipment for their ambulance program. And you'll see a PowerPoint attached to the agenda request that talks about the equipment needed for the ambulance service. Both of these appeared to us to be critical needs. There's a remaining $10,500 approximately, which I recommend goes to the sheriff's office specifically for new technology for investigative tools. One of those is in the last page of, or not the last page, but one of the last pages you'll see some information about the IllumaCam. But with the new investigator position at the sheriff's office, I believe it's an appropriate time for the sheriff's office to invest in new technology. I haven't seen much of that in the way of investigative tools. So, discretion to the investigator and the sheriff's office and how they spend that. But that's how we're asking the board to distribute these funds.
Thank you for that background. Very helpful. Is there anything you would like to share with us regarding the ambulance in particular, since you're here? Come up to the microphone. I just am betting you have some things you'd like to share.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. I just want to thank County Commissioner Yorkie and County Attorney Hicken for spending some time with me in June. And Commissioner Yorkie, I think, reached out to me in March, and we've had some conversations March and April, and then, of course, being able to spend some time with them in June. So I'm happy to answer any questions about our needs. I think I've outlined some PowerPoint points that you have in your agenda, but basically we are a 24/7 full-service ambulance crew. We do not depend on volunteers. We are a paid staff 24/7. We are a roster of 28 I think this is 27, and I newly hired somebody, so we have 28. And we now offer more ALS coverage than we ever have in the history of our service. And so we have 8 paramedics and 20 EMTs. Actually, I should say a mix of EMTs and EMRs. And the 3 needs that we highlighted really focus around safety and patient outcomes. I highlighted them in the PowerPoint, happy to take questions, but they do focus on ventilator for our intubated patients. This is also helpful for BiPAP and any respiratory conditions. A Lucas chest compression device. Already in the past month, we've had 3 cardiac arrests. Lucas compression devices are a must, especially in a geography where we are so expanded. And to speak on that geography, our service covers 3,400 square miles, very, very vast, with 1 ambulance service. We cover 1,500 square miles in land, about 1,900 in water, and we're responsible for those boundary waters and all of that. So the compression device is helpful versus having to do manual compressions. We have compression devices, however, they have reached their life, and we're looking for a replacement. And then thirdly, the request is for a powered stair chair. Again, this is for extrication. We use this more often than not to get our patients out of tight quarters, old homes, lots of stairs. The stair chairs that we have are a safety risk and have been pulled from our services. The tracks just fall, so we are looking for crucial items to help us, again, with safety and patient outcomes. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments that commissioners have? Commissioner
I don't have
Johnson?
a question about the ambulance stuff.
Another question.
It's about the Violence Prevention Center
Okay.
and the $100,000. I certainly support the Violence Prevention Center. Was there a budget? Is this to continue services as current or expand services?
To continue services as they currently are, yes. It was part of their grant request for the federal funds, but was not awarded. The Violence Prevention Center has seen a significant increase in demand for their services in the last 5 years, and that's kind of described in the proposal that's attached to the agenda item. But those are all services that are requested in Cook County. They're an integral part of our justice system. The deputies carry cards with Violence Prevention Center contact information on them, and hand them out to crime victims who are in domestic violence or sexual violence situations. Deputies will call an advocate to the scene for some cases. Advocates accompany victims in court. Our victim services staff works closely with Violence Prevention Center staff. They're an important leg of the stool, I guess, in our system. So to me, it makes sense that we would fill this need while they're temporarily underfunded.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, and I'm asking that question because I sat through a presentation yesterday where they were needing more funds for 24/7 weekends and holidays, mostly, it sounded like. And I wondered if their proposal, if their budget was part of that, if this 100,000 was in any way connected with that need?
I don't think so, although I couldn't guarantee without having a director here. What I believe is that these would have been funds that were requested in a grant application two years ago, 1.5 years ago, that the federal government then only partially funded. So,
Thank you.
Well, with no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion to approve the expenditure of Cook County's $179,095 in state public aid, with $100,000 going to the Violence Prevention Center, $68,000 to North Shore Health Ambulance Service, and the balance of $10,495 to purchase forensic investigation equipment for our Sheriff's Department. Is there support?
Madam
Thank you.
Chair, I believe the amount for the ambulance service was $68,600.
Correct, 68,600.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all you do for us.
Appreciate it.
All right, we will return back up to item 5, land services. I know Tim Nelson thought we were going to take a break, but good morning.
Good morning. And this shouldn't take very long, actually. This is just a bit of a repeat of what I had actually presented the whole case to you earlier. The only change, and there really isn't any changes, this is the final agreement. We had to get kind of preliminary approval, get it back to the state. The state drafted up the final agreement for us to sign. I sent that off to the county attorney for review and look at. Otherwise, none of the items had changed. And just as a very quick refresher, this is the Safe Drinking Water grant that is no cost or match to the county. This is in slightly less than $100,000, and it lasts from starting as soon as we get this grant signed off on by us and the state. It'll last through 2027. Not through the end, but through May, into May of 2027. And it basically has 3 phases where there's a public educational component to it, a well water testing component to it, and then a remediation component to that. We are working collaboratively with the Public Health and Human Services and the SWCD in on all this, and basically it targets the low income and other population groups specifically for this. So you look at it, a little under 100 grand over about 3 years is not a lot, but it is something for us to get started. And we were only one of 6 counties that was chosen to be able to receive these funds. So the request is to go ahead and approve the final agreement and to authorize me to go ahead and sign that for us.
All right. Are there any questions for Director Nelson? Commissioner White?
Could you delineate what's will be tested in this water? Because I think it was Lake County, is testing for plastic in water also?
Right. There are 5 compounds that are being included in, and these are mandated by the state, this program. And they're all the basic ones. Plastic is not one of those.
Okay.
The one that's kind of odd, I think, is the manganese or one of the ones I can't remember right off the top of my head.
Manganese,
But it
yeah.
is a little bit of a different one. We don't typically, we go for, here when we test, we go for the fecal coliform and bacteria and all these lead and different stuff. But yeah, the plastic is even another more specific type of testing to have to do that's not included. The chemicals that are included in this were dictated by Minnesota Department of Health.
Okay.
Good question. Other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Make the motion. I can't get it.
Okay. Make the motion to accept the final grant agreement from the Minnesota Department of Health in the amount of $99,089.80.
Yeah, where'd that 80 cents come from?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll look forward to that clean water after the well testing. All right. We're moving on now to item 6, and we have our HR director. Good morning, Allison.
Good morning. All right. So Today, I am bringing forth 6 positions within our organization that have gone through the job description and grading process with DDA. I'll go through the 6 positions here. So the first one is our Public Health and Human Services Office Support Specialist Case Aid position. So this position includes an updated job description and a change in the job grade from a 130 to a 140. We currently have 2 individuals in this position or with this job title. Second, we have our social services case aid. This includes an updated job description, also a change in the job grade from a 130 to a 140. We have 1 individual in this role. We have the Public Health and Human Services Executive Administrative Assistant position. This includes an updated job description, but no change in job grade. It will remain at a 160. We have our Community Public Health Supervisor. This includes an updated job description, but the job grade will remain the same at a 200. We have our IT GIS Analyst position. This includes an updated job description. The job grade will remain at a 170. And then we have, really in essence, it's a new job description. It will be our Director of Facilities position, which will replace the former Maintenance Director position. This job description was drafted and reviewed by the Personnel Committee before it was sent off to DDA for its review and grading. This position will be graded at a 240. I should say will be graded pending your approval.
Thank you. Are there questions that commissioners have?
Of course.
Commissioner Johnson?
Everyone kind of.
So I just need to state again my distrust of this whole process. 6 months ago, we approved a new updated job description for office support specialist in a different department. And I went back and looked at that. And is DDA changing their formats? Because my understanding was when we hired DDA to go through our job descriptions, it was to make things alike, to be more consistent in the wordings we use. And I just see a lot of extra words being added today than were added before. And I just have a problem with that. Yeah, where's my notes for that one? Oh, it's up here. And I wanted to understand why the office support specialist from 6 months ago needs a 2 years post-high school training, or 2 years and 2 years of experience, but in public health and human services, you need an associate's degree and 3 years experience. How do you determine what the job requirement needs are?
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at my notes just to confirm which office support specialist position you were referring to. I believe that is the one with the auditor's office.
Correct.
Right. Well, ultimately, the 2 positions, the office support specialist in the auditor's office versus the office support specialist and case aid position, public health and human services, are different positions, different departments, different focuses. So there's naturally going to be a difference in terminology because what they do is different. So we can have a similar title because they're both providing support for that specific office, but their roles, their tasks, their essential functions are going to be very different, especially with the office support specialist up in public health and human services. They also act as a case aid. So their roles are beyond just what you'd expect for the office support specialist. Now, from my understanding in working with Tessa and DDA is that she determines the format. I've not heard of a difference that she's applying to the current job descriptions. That is her expertise. We put that trust, you mentioned distrust, we put that trust in what she's doing. That's what we're paying them for, based on their experience, their expertise, and this is their area of focus. In terms of the education, a lot of that does come down to, well, two things. First and foremost, what are the expectations of the job, the essential functions, and what level of education and experience is that hiring manager looking for, determining what would be kind of the minimum, these are all minimum qualifications to be eligible for the position. So what are they looking for in an individual that would provide the level of ability to be able to perform those essential functions? And then DDA does review those as well, and they do provide input. So they go together, and it's not that DDA can just override and trump. They can provide that feedback on what they see based on other job descriptions in other counties, because we also want to be able to recruit individuals for these positions. So we don't want to make the minimum qualifications too restrictive to be able to hire people. But then the job descriptions, even with a specific level of education and minimum years of experience listed, our job descriptions then do also include or equivalent experience to perform the essential functions of the job. So that then still provides flexibility for individuals that don't necessarily meet that level, that degree that's indicated, or years of experience, that they could have a combination of both. And that would be up to the hiring manager to determine, based on what that candidate that they've identified, what they're bringing in, if they would be able to meet those essential functions without necessarily having that specific degree. Does that help, Commissioner John? Oh, gosh. Your wheels are turning.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I still think it's important for our organization, countywide, not just certain departments, but that we use consistent language. We have a basic understanding what's the difference between 2 years post-high school training and an associate's degree. And yeah, there's other questions here too.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned that DDA provides input.
Yes.
Do we take their advice, or do we say, no, we want to keep it this way?
It depends on the advice for the specific position. We have taken their advice, and there's been other instances where we have not.
And why don't we then? If they're the experts, why don't we take their advice?
Right. Again, it's very dependent on what they're advising or offering as a suggestion based on what they see. So, for example, I think with our sheriff's department, this is one of the examples that I can think of that we did not go with the suggestion of DDA, was they were, Tessa and DDA typically see nowadays that they're creating like a level 1 and a level 2 position within departments, and kind of a team setting where you're going to have a lot of individuals in one role. So you think deputy sheriffs or our public safety telecommunicators / jailers, that we have a handful of individuals in that role, that they are starting to see more counties, more organizations doing kind of a ladder, a progressive approach. So they'll create like a 1 position and the 2 position, and that will allow even movement for, in a sense, kind of like a promotional opportunity within an organization, within a role, where you can hire someone in, say, at a deputy sheriff level 1 position, maybe with less years of experience. This will be a great training opportunity. They're post-certified. But then as we have more experienced staff, to move them to a level 2 position. These are individuals that have worked for a certain number of years. They bring a certain level of experience and expertise to the position. So it's a way of being able to create some movement within a specific position that otherwise you may not necessarily see movement, because there's not a lot of movement built into public organization and that option for promotional opportunities. And same with the telecommunicator jailer position that Tessa had said, well, we've seen that they've created a 1 and a 2 position. So those were situations where in the communications with DDA and the hiring manager for those positions, the supervisor for those positions, that they decided not to do that approach at this time.
Any other ones you can cite besides sheriff?
That they did not take suggestions? No, those are the biggest ones that I can think of at this point. I mean, most of the time I'm deferring to DDA and their experience and what suggestions they've seen to help improve job description, improve recruitment, attraction to the position. We're typically taking.
Well, that's what I'm curious.
It's more of those hierarchical, like 1 and 2 type positions that I can think of would be the ones that we did not go with those suggestions, because they just were not, the hire manager deemed it just was not a right fit at this time.
So, and I'm especially wondering about the education requirements.
Yep.
Across the organization. Does DDA provide feedback of what do other counties do in this similar job and how far away we are from what other counties do?
Yes, yes. It's not very often, but that is part of their review of the job descriptions, because they're also looking to see, are we being too restrictive for what the market would dictate for these positions?
And then do we lower
Yep.
our
Yep.
We
Yes.
have always lowered it when it's been recommended to us.
Yes. Yep.
All right. I just go back and suggest that maybe you look at Adriana's job description and the one we're being asked to approve today and compare line by line, because that's what I did. This is what yours said, this is what yours said. I just think common terminology is very important. And just because you add more words doesn't make it more important. So that's all I have on that one. And then maybe we want to discuss the facilities director separately. I'll let other people join.
Are there other positions?
Well, no, I just have a question. When you said we did not go with law enforcement, that the hiring manager, are we speaking of Sheriff Eliason? Said that this wouldn't be, the levels was not appropriate at this time? So he made that decision?
Well, for the 2 positions, it would be the public safety telecommunicator jailer would be Ben Hallberg, and then for deputy sheriffs, it usually is a communication piece with Sheriff Eliason and Chief Deputy Sandstrom.
So I guess still, your statement about these consultants, they know better, then we shouldn't argue with them. I mean, that's just the whole point, but I question how any outside entity knows better the conditions and the actual functioning of Cook County, the location, the scarcity of working employees, people that are possible for these employees, the housing, the cost of living, and I just really question how, unless you are in here, unless you actually live in Cook County, that you really have a full understanding of the implications of living here. And so to just put our trust entirely, except we do argue on occasion, I guess, but how much do we pay these people? I mean, how much is this service costing us?
Administrator, you're.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think it's, to get to your first question about, do we just always accept the consultant's recommendations, or it's always a dialogue, and that's true of any contractual relationship, right? When we hire a consultant to advise us, there's always a discussion about, the consultant provides a recommendation, and then we ask, why are you recommending this? And then there's a back and forth, and that's the way it should be, right? We shouldn't just, when we hire a consultant, we shouldn't just blindly accept everything that they recommend. There has to be a discussion there. We have to understand why they're recommending what they are, and maybe what they're recommending is a good fit for us, or maybe it's not. But I think that back and forth is really essential to making sure that we end up with processes and policies that make sense for us. To the other question about the cost, I want to say the cost of the job description review and classification service is like on the order of like $10,000 a year.
Yeah, it's like between 11 and 12.
It's
Right
not
now?
a big amount. And the reason that the board decided to contract with DDA is because we felt it provided a lot of value in terms of the time saved. Because previously, when we did job reclassifications, we had a committee of some of our most highly paid people, the sheriff, director of public health and human services, the county attorney, et cetera. And they would spend hours poring over each job description. And we felt that the value of hiring a professional consultant to do that work for us would actually save us a lot of money in the long run. So that's how we ended up where we are.
I would like to add to that, I know the focus in this discussion has been on the positions within the sheriff's department. Just wanted to add to that DDA suggested that as an opportunity in doing the hierarchical 1 and 2 positions as something that they're starting to see. Not saying, I still feel there's a difference between like a recommendation versus a suggestion, in a sense that, she's not saying you need to do this. We see this with all other positions being revamped. You should be doing this method. One of the things that came into the decision of not addressing that 1 and 2 position at that time for those 2 positions was the urgency it was already up in the queue, and knowing the difficulties we've had with recruiting that our focus was just on reviewing those current job descriptions as is for right now versus taking a longer period of time to determine how would we split these and create a 1 and a 2, because then you're still going to have to look at what essential functions would go with a 1 versus a 2, and that's just with any position. You have to determine that. So thinking of the importance and the turnaround time and the efforts with recruiting and filling these really dire positions, because we're extremely short-staffed in the sheriff's department for those 2 positions, it came down to, let's just review the job descriptions as is, go through that process. At a later time, we can circle back to the 1 and 2, but really the priority at that point was just to get those through that review process, which we saw an increase in those job grades following the review process with DDA, and that has made a big impact. And so, again, just looking at that piece, that we're not completely throwing out that suggestion, that would be something that we would like to circle back to. It just wasn't in the cards at that time.
And I'd like to remind all of us that we look at these job descriptions. We're reviewing 1/3 of them every year. One of the important features is to look at a job description on a regular basis, so as technology changes, the skills that are needed, and the abilities of our staff, that we are keeping up to date. We don't get so far behind like we did in the past. Any other discussion about positions? Commissioner Johnson,
Well,
you had mentioned the facility.
I have serious concerns with the facility director position. So
Okay.
do we want to move there? Sure. Okay. So when you look at the facility director job description compared to the maintenance director job description from 2016, because that was the last one I could find. So it's been 8 years since that's got updated. There are not a whole lot of changes, except we want to make sure we have somebody with a business degree, an engineer degree, or an architect degree. And I'm thinking, really? We want somebody with a business degree fixing our leaky pipes? Or, that just does not, I don't see that position needing that kind of a degree. An architect for building maintenance? And then my next concern is, okay, so this is a big jump in salary. And we've had somebody in this position for years. Every other one you're asking us to approve today is going to change that person's salary if it's a grade jump today, right? But we're asking to change our current director's job description, but not pay him for filling the exact same role.
So in my understanding, it is not the exact same role. It's very different.
Did you cross them out like I did?
I did not cross out, no. Commissioner White, did you have?
The job description, one person, I mean, obviously the person needs to have a staff. I mean, one cannot be, and then the person is on call 24 hours a day. And I understand, and then when they're short-staffed, I understand like when the YMCA needed some cleaning, that's what, it falls to our maintenance department supervisor to do that. If we need to have, I want somebody with actual skills to be taking care of our facility, somebody that can look at that wall over there and see the crack up in the building or in the corner and say, we've got a foundation issue. I want somebody that can look at a spot in the ceiling and say, we've got something going on with the roof, and it might not be there, it might be over there. Somebody that understands this, but somebody, why doesn't not all these other departments, many of the departments have administrative assistants for keeping track of data. Why does not maintenance have somebody to keep track of data? They're already short-staffed for people to actually do the work. So why are we now going to eliminate a person that actually has the proven abilities to take care of the buildings, like hands-on? When something goes wrong, we need somebody to grab a bucket, and go and mop up the floor or whatever needs to be done. But wait, this person is busy on their computer? Like, why does this department not have a part-time administrative assistant? I'm assuming it's got to be part-time. But I look at this whole list of job responsibilities, it's crushing. It's absolutely crushing if something goes wrong somewhere. And then if you're short-staffed, then it gets to be even worse. So you want somebody with an architect's degree? No, absolutely not. I mean, if you want to have an architect's degree, that's fine, but people with architect degrees have other options than fixing old buildings. And I agree with Commissioner Johnson that this just, I have a hard time, and I'm not part of the Personnel Committee. I'm told that the Personnel Committee thought this was perfect, the way it should be. So the people on the Personnel Committee with construction knowledge, they thought this was a good idea? I mean, we must have had.
It was supportive of the job description, yes. So I've heard a number of assumptions about what this position is and isn't, and so obviously I need to clarify what's expected here. So using as an example the county that I used to work for, Johnson County, Kansas, which is a suburban county in Kansas City. It's a much larger organization, and I'm not saying that can be an exact template for what we need to do here. But here's what I have seen. And I want to preface these comments by saying that we have really talented and devoted maintenance staff. They do a good job for us. When something breaks down, they're on it. And it doesn't matter if it's in the evening or on a weekend, they are there to get the work done. And so that is invaluable. And, you know, we've been in a position, as you well know, where we have, our buildings are older, we have deferred maintenance to the point where we have a lot of equipment that breaks down frequently. And so they have to be ready to respond. When the dehumidifier in the auditorium breaks down or is triggered because it goes off when there are power surges, and it has to be manually reset, which means going up on the roof and resetting it. And if that happens on a weekend, which it did just this past weekend, Jimmy Wallner went up there and reset it. And so, yes, that kind of hands-on experience it's mandatory. And I'm not envisioning a position where this would simply be a manager who doesn't have that kind of expertise or knowledge or ability to do the work. In fact, there is a boiler specialist requirement here. So if we have a problem with a boiler, this person would have the knowledge to respond to that. What I'm thinking, and we're going to have a conversation about this in our budget planning work session on Thursday and also again Tuesday next week, is we need more capacity in this department, right? We are so thin. Basically, when we have those kinds of problems, it's either Brian or Jimmy that has to go and respond. And if they're both out of pocket, then there's nobody there. And so I really do think that we need a third position that has that maintenance background that can do this work. But I do not expect that the maintenance or the facilities director would simply be somebody who's in an office and on a computer all the time.
Architects aren't known for actually having hands-on experience with construction or buildings.
Some of them do.
I think
And
Well, but anyway.
just to be clear, I'm not saying let's hire an architect to do this. I'm just saying that would be an appropriate background, I think, to have for this kind of position. And I've seen people with architecture backgrounds in this role. In fact, my former boss was, and he was extremely capable and knowledgeable.
I think
So-
the key here is if we look at the way it's worded, it's a bachelor's degree in engineering, business, architecture, or related field, all right? Or a high school diploma plus a minimum of 5 years prior relevant experience, education. So that's the piece that we need to look at. It's giving options, okay?
Does it, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me. Is it GES or an high school equivalency should be in that also? Book
I think
learning
this-
is one thing. Being able to fix things is a whole nother part of one's brain. And at this point in time, you will see that the push for high school students to go college, everyone goes off to college, that is being changed. How about trade schools? Let's get some real experience, or real hands-on education for living in life. And I do not believe that a person that is in charge of our buildings needs to have communication skills, absolutely, but an ability to a bachelor's degree, or even if they don't have the high school equivalency, living life is an education. And so it's got to be a very serious job interview when it happens, because there are some very smart people, and I'm talking not 19-year-olds. I'm talking people older in their careers who have knowledge to share, but times were different, and they've just succeeded in life without having the degrees.
Administrator.
I really appreciate those comments. So here's my biggest motivator for proposing what I am, and that is that currently I feel like we are hamstrung in implementing the CIP. And I think we need to bring in somebody who's got the experience and the project management skills to really be able to write RFPs, to manage data electronically. That's really the big piece that we're missing currently. We don't have anybody in the maintenance department who knows how to use a spreadsheet. And that is a huge limiting factor in our trying to implement the CIP. And so this proposed job description really tries to address those deficits, and it's aimed at enabling us to recruit somebody who's going to come in with those skills and be able to allow us to implement all those projects. I've been trying to pinch hit on that and not doing a great job, I'll just say it, because I've got so many other things going on. And so bringing somebody in who's got that skill set, project management, computer skills, and also work experience in doing these kinds of projects, I think is going to be really important. And if we don't get that, we're going to continue to struggle getting the CIP implemented.
Commissioner Johnson.
I've got a couple notes here. So first of all, I want to ask, in the development of this job description, did you reach out to like the school, the hospital, the city? Because they have similar positions. And I'm wondering how similar this is built off of theirs.
That's a great question. I have talked to people in the community who have similar positions about their roles and what they do. And this is aligned with that.
With the same
Now,
job requirements?
I haven't looked at the job descriptions. I can't tell you what those look like. But I've talked to people who do this kind of work to learn what their experience is and what they do on a day-to-day basis.
I know one of the things I noticed is, and thinking back to my school experience, is that we had individuals who had that project management experience for building a new school, adding an addition, keeping track of multiple buildings. Not nearly as many as we have, in fact. And they had the boiler license, the pool license, but they also did the oversight on regular maintenance. And so I think this position, although it's a change in job grade because it's a completely different position, is something that would save us money over time. I think that's really important, looking at it strictly from an economic standpoint.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. And it really bothers me that we think we need somebody with a bachelor's degree to do this work.
So it says bachelor's degree or
a high school diploma and 5 years experience. It doesn't say bachelor's degree and 5 years experience doing the work. It says or. And I have a problem with going out there saying we want to hire somebody with a business degree to be our maintenance person, because that's what we really need. I get, right now we have all these projects that we can't seem to figure out how to make happen. And I just don't see hiring somebody with this kind of bachelor's degree because we want a spreadsheet. You know what? There's help in the auditor's office, but maybe Brady can get another position to say, we'll do the spreadsheet for you.
Madam Chair.
administrator. You-
So, I mean, I'm going to be the hiring manager on this. I would never hire somebody who simply has a business degree and no experience doing building management. That would not happen. So, I mean, the person will have to have, I mean, if they have a four-year degree, great. If they don't, okay. There's a provision to enable somebody with good experience to be considered for the job. But I would not hire somebody who simply has a four-year degree but doesn't have any experience managing buildings. They're going to have a demonstrated history of doing this kind of, pardon me, they're going to have a demonstrated history of doing this kind of work, to doing project management, managing buildings. And if that's absent, they're not going to get hired.
And I understand that. I would hope that. I'm going by what it says. It says or. So I understand your intention, and I think that would be the wise way to go. But this is going back to what are our job descriptions accurately reflecting what we are doing and what we want or not? What if you're not sitting in that chair and you're not the hiring manager next time around? Oh, all I have to do is find somebody with a business degree and they can do this job.
So I think what we're
How
getting
about
at is,
English degree?
under education and experience, changing that first piece just slightly, instead of, or a high school diploma, related field, high school diploma, and a minimum of. Is that what you're asking? So that you have the educational options and experience. That's what I'm hearing. Commissioner White?
Well,
I'm still
just-
processing.
I'm aware. I thought, as a public person, the reason that there has been such a lag in deferred maintenance was a lack of money. The county didn't have the money and didn't want to raise the levy even more to fix the building. So things were put off. We're not going to do this now. We don't have the money, so we'll just do this maybe next year. That was the reason for it. It wasn't because we didn't have a person or people in place that would do the work. It was because the county board or the budget, there was not funding for taking care of the buildings. That's the public's, that's what was told. So we can't say we're in such a mess because this hasn't been done because we haven't had the personnel to do it. We haven't done our buildings because the buildings have not been a priority financially. If they had been,
And
I don't-
staffing haven't been a priority, because my feeling is that Brian Silence has been working with too small a crew for a long time.
and I absolutely agree with you on that one. So, it's not that it's not, yeah, I forgot about Brady's department. He's got all sorts of people that do spreadsheets and numbers, even our administrative assistant, the administrator's assistant, Jana, knows how to do this. But I'm not
These
suggesting
are already
it.
full-time jobs. I'm just going to remind people, these are full-time jobs already. We don't have people just sitting around waiting to do a
Right, so
spreadsheet.
perhaps we need to have somebody, as I said a while ago, maybe this department needs to have a person hired, probably not full-time, but half-time, just like up at the community center. I mean, people, we have half-time positions, and to have somebody come in and do the half-time spreadsheets, get the data will be in this in basket, you get this, here's the, we need I think the requirement, what you're asking for, is somebody that might not exist.
I think there
I
are
think they
people
do.
that do exist. From my experience, I've seen them.
I think they do. And Commissioner, if I could just add to your point, it hasn't just been about a deficit of funds to do the work. It has been short staffing, and it's also been, again, we have not had an improved CIP until within the last year. And the work that we need to do to get that plan implemented requires a skill set that currently does not exist in the maintenance department. And so, I mean, they're good at fixing stuff, but in terms of like the long-term planning and the being able to write RFPs and that kind of thing, that's not what they do. And that's not to denigrate the work that they do for us, because like I said, they're very dedicated and very knowledgeable, but they're knowledgeable about fixing stuff. And yes, we need to fix stuff, but we have other needs as well. And this position aims to address those needs.
So the RFPs are to be written by you? I would take it because you're the next level up.
Well, I have written them,
Because there is no one else.
but I mean,
So, but then before we had an administrator, how did we get anything done?
We
It's
would-
been quite a while, so there have been no
we
RFPs before then?
we did what we still do, which is when we need like a roofer, we make phone calls to roofers. But we have, I mean, and that's great for doing like individual jobs, but we have sets of projects that need to be done. Like, we have plumbing needs and electrical needs in multiple buildings. And that is a complexity of task that, you can't just like make phone calls to an electrician and say, hey, I need you to, replace a controller in the law enforcement center, I need you. It's bigger than that. And so we need somebody who has the experience managing these larger, more complex projects. And that's gonna enable us to dig our way out of this hole that we're in terms of the deferred maintenance, and in terms of getting caught up on deferred maintenance per the CIP.
Something you just said triggered something.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to bundle everything before and hire a project manager, and that
Right.
did not work.
We tried, yes, we issued an RFP at the end of last year. We got one response, and that put us back to looking at doing things in smaller bundles, but still bundles. Like ideally, we want to, if we have plumbing needs, we want to get one plumbing firm or one plumber as much as possible to do as many jobs as we can. Because if we have a different company doing every single job, I mean, we've got literally dozens and dozens of projects in the CIP. And so some of it's going to have to be bundled to get done. And again, it requires project management to enable that.
I guess I need to think about that more, but I'm thinking of all the the difficulty right now in getting electricians, plumbers, and they don't. I don't know. I'm just thinking it'd be better to try to split up some of these things, and maybe Brian has been handling it the best way, but that's meets our needs for
Again,
now. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and again, Commissioner, I mean, as you well know, we have been in the mode of reacting to things. And so Brian's capacity to be proactive and to, schedule appointments to talk to contractors on all these multiple projects in the CIP is very limited. I mean, because he's, the phone rings in the morning or it rings in the middle of the night, the Sresco unit over at the Y is on the fritz, he has to go out and take care of that. And that is the nature of his schedule right now. There are always things popping up that he cannot anticipate. And what I'm trying to do here is to shift us to having the skill sets and also the number of staff that we need in a facilities department to not only respond to those fires, but also to be more proactive and to get the CIP moving ahead.
I would be interested in seeing this regraded at DDA with taking out you want to leave the bachelor's degree, but take out the engineering, business, or architecture, and then say, and 5 years of related experience. And I want to know if DDA would grade it differently, or are we grading it because really an engineer?
No, that's, that would not change the grading. I talked to Tessa at length about this, about what the actual responsibilities of the position are going to be. And the 4-year degree, whether it's engineering or architecture or what have you, that's kind of a fixed quantity. That's not going to, it doesn't vary according to what kind of degree it is in terms of how it gets graded.
So did DDA give advice on this one compared to what other counties do?
Yes.
And do other counties require those degrees?
Well, it depends. I mean, for a facilities director, typically, yes.
I don't know.
I mean, and again, we're going from a maintenance director position, which is what it currently is, and really a working maintenance manager is what it is, right? Going to somebody, again, who's got the computer skills, the strategic planning skills, the plan implementation, project management skills. Those are the things that we desperately need here. And the other thing is, Brian's retirement is coming up quick. And so, starting recruitment on this is going to be really important.
Commissioner White.
Don't we have, when I came into here, the CIP, there was outside consultants, $222,000. they did an assessment of all of our buildings, did a fine job, did a schedule. They identified which were the most important projects to be done, parts of buildings, by year. That's right there to be worked on. Now, we blew off 2023. We're now into 2024, and we have the community
Commissioner,
center.
I have to interject. We did not blow off 2023.
So what-
The plan was not approved until the end of that summer. The building season was essentially over. So I reject your characterization that it was blown off. It was not.
There was a lot of attention put on, I mean, we took last year, and we were focusing on a justice center. We didn't, and we had approved.
That's what the board directed me to do.
And we had approved, prior to that, a bonding for fixing the roofs on the community center. Let's get this right. The community center, the courthouse, was it? And there was something else.
It was the communities, if you're talking about roofs, community center, Coldwell Town Hall, and the museum.
And we approved bonding for that, to go after, so we could have started that.
Actually, the museum roof was not, that need was identified after we put together the list of bond projects. So
We
that's
haven't
not-
fixed that one
And
yet
we've
either.
got cash on
waiting
hand.
for
to do
SHPO.
that. Yeah. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But there were other items that our budget could have taken care of, like let's get an electrician to come on in and do different things. So am I understanding that our maintenance department did not look at that list for 2023 and say, we really need to fix this now in 2023 or 2024 now? If people, you'd have to go back to see it. I'm sure we have it online to see that graph, that
I
grid.
know what you're referring to.
And so I'm sure some of those items have been taken care of, yes?
Yes, but I can't give you a list.
Okay.
I mean, I know that we're working on it.
And I know there are emergencies that pop up all the time.
The other thing is, since the CIP was approved, we've had staff in the maintenance department having major health issues, and that has limited, and that has taken them out of commission for a good part of the time, certainly last fall, after the plan was approved. Our capacity was even more limited because one of our key people could not be on the job. So, I mean, there are a number of factors that have put us where we are. And I'm not saying that to make excuses. I'm just saying that to acknowledge that things have happened that have made it challenging for us to get the plan moving forward.
And I concur with Commissioner Sullivan, is that department is short-staffed.
And that's another discussion as we talk about
Yes.
the budget. I'd like to continue to look at this particular job description and, again, focus on the qualifications. I think we have there, and maybe we're just not on the same page with how we're reading it, that it says bachelor's degree in engineering, business, architecture-related field, or a high school diploma, plus a minimum of 5 years prior relevant education or experience, etc.
It's the comma after field.
So that's what I'm getting at. It's how we're looking at it. And so I think if we change that, we are fine. I think it's how we're.
I don't know that we're fine yet. I still
Okay.
have
I
problems.
think we're interpreting that differently because of where that comma is placed.
Madam Chair, so I heard Commissioner Johnson say that if we remove those specific types of degrees from the description, you would feel better about that requirement, and if we said four-year degree and experience.
I'd feel better, yes.
Okay.
I'm still struggling with such a large grade jump so that we can get a spreadsheet. That's what I'm
Well,
hearing.
that's oversimplifying the issue, I think. It's a lot more than getting a spreadsheet. We need a skill set, again, that is broader than what we have currently. that has the ability to do long-term planning and to make strategic recommendations to me and this board. And we're not there right now. We're just not. The other thing I wanted to mention, so currently this position, we've got somebody who's been with the organization for a long time. They're at the top of the pay scale and they're getting longevity. And so I figured, without giving too much away, because we do have to do a recruitment process, but I figured that even if we allow ourselves some room for negotiation, we would be saving a minimum of about $24,000 a year in the first year of having this person on board. So the ceiling is higher over time, right? It's a higher grade, and the earning potential long-term is higher. But in the short term, it would actually lead to a cost reduction.
Other comments or questions? So I'm going to take a shot at this. I'd like to make a motion to approve the job descriptions as listed with the change in Director of Facilities to indicate a bachelor's degree and eliminate the engineering, business, and architecture-related field, or a high school diploma, plus a minimum of 5 years' experience. Commissioner White.
The 5 years of experience is required even if you have a bachelor's
Correct.
degree. And the experience is probably more important than the degree. And it should be, besides, I want high school equivalency in there too, for people that
So-
have a GED.
So high school, so have it read high school diploma or equivalency? Or do you want to say GED?
Well, GED is what we have in Minnesota, so I don't know if that's.
I would say high school equivalency in the event that we're looking for someone from out of state.
Yeah. And I would like 5 years of experience as being more important than the degree. Because if you have 5 years of experience and you've looked at this, the job description, well, you've done an awful lot. I mean, if you're stepping forward and saying, I know the laws and regulations related to occupational hazards and employee safety, and you say, yes, I am familiar with historic building preservation requirements. So this is someone, for 5 years, they've been involved in projects that covers a great array of experiences that you would not get from book learning. You would not get it, ever.
So we have a motion that changes the education and experience, the wording. Is there a second?
Can I?
Madam Chair, if I could, so what we're saying effectively is it doesn't matter what your education is. You have to have 5 years of experience. And it doesn't matter if you've got like a high school diploma or GED or a bachelor's degree, but you have to have the 5 years of experience. So basically, we could just write the educational experience out of the job description is what I'm hearing.
I don't think we can. I think that to be consistent with the way DDA and all of our job descriptions are written, that we do need to state that education and experience, and that's the title of that category,
But-
education and experience.
But, I mean, if we're saying that a high school diploma or GED plus 5 years of experience is equal to a bachelor's degree and 5 years of experience, then the minimum is you have to have a high school diploma. And so we're basically saying, let's take the high school degree, or the college degree out of it. I mean,
And then that probably will change the grade. Based on what I've
it well
known
could.
through this whole
It
process.
well could, yeah.
Can I just add something in terms of, we're talking about consistent language, as Commissioner Johnson brought up earlier. We do not list a high school degree or GED as a minimum qualification in the other job descriptions. So I don't want to say it's assumed, because we don't ever want to say that, but in essence, the education listed is typically anything above a high school education that we would like as minimum. So I would hesitate, if we're looking for consistency in language, I would hesitate adding high school diploma or GED specifically just to the director of facilities position if we are not including it in any of our other job descriptions. And there's also, again, the caveat that we state in all of our job descriptions with the minimum qualifications is that we can list out what we would like. Our ideal candidate would be a minimum of a bachelor's degree in a related field and not list what degrees plus the 5 years of experience. Or we have the language equivalent education and experience that would allow the person to complete the essential functions of the job, which then could be like a high school degree plus 10 years of project management experience. But we're still indicating the level of a degree that we would like that ideal candidate to have, but there's the wiggle room that if someone doesn't have that degree, we're still looking for a higher level of combination education experience that would allow them to still be able to excel in this role.
I do
I like
too. So there's not a second for that motion that I've made. I'm gonna ask.
I was
and-
out of order, I think. Sorry.
So I'm going to recommend we ask if there's a second. If there's not, the motion dies. And then we use the language that Allison just shared with us for a motion. So is there a second to my motion? There is not, motion dies.
So instead of approving this today, I get you want to move forward and list this way, but can we rewrite that in that format and bring it back? I feel more comfortable doing it that way. Because I'm a type of person that likes to process, and I'm slow at that. One other point I want to bring up here, the maintenance director had a line that says that they were responsible for checking boilers, including weekends and holidays. The new one says occasionally weekends and holidays. Now, my understanding is, especially in the winter, that boiler has to be checked. So what was the rationale for it changing to us occasionally?
Sorry. I talked to Ryan about that and asked him, do you actually come in here like 365 days a year to check the boiler? He does not. He does check it every day during the week in this building. And, you know, if there are alarms, then he will respond to those. And that's actually what's required. So that's why we changed the word.
I just want to make sure we're not. Because I was under the impression it was on a more regular basis on weekends.
Yeah.
It's not, okay. All right. So going back to, I just feel more comfortable. I really think I like what you were saying, but I'd like to send this one back and say, let's rethink this, and also run it by DDA to say, if we change it this way, does it change your opinion or any other advice? Mm-hmm. And it would also give me a chance to reach out and see what the city or school, yes, that I wrote it down here, because I really hadn't done that. I'm thinking about this until now.
Administrator York.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I appreciate your desire to be really thorough about this. It's July 9th, and Ryan's retirement date, I believe, is September 3rd. And so if this is delayed, and again, I mean, the board can do whatever it is comfortable doing. But if it's delayed, then the soonest that we could reconsider this would be the 23rd. We'd have to get it advertised, and it'd have to be open probably for at least a couple of weeks. That puts us into the beginning to middle of August. And then scheduling interviews, that would happen in the latter part of August, and then they'd have to give notice. And so I'm just, we're in a little bit of a crunch here.
Commissioner White?
How long have we known that Brian did he officially retire? Say he was going to retire? It's
don't-
not been yesterday.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't.
So could this have come to the board before now?
It could have.
So actually,
If there weren't a lot of other things going on.
irrelevant, if
quite
it's so, well, if it's so important that we have to do it now because we're running out of time, that's a self-inflicted emergency. If we know he's leaving and we need this position filled, when we knew he was leaving, then the personnel committee or this should have come to the head of the line for review by DDA, and we should have been on it prior. It's about process. I would like to see it in writing. And then all the other ones, okay, but not this one. It's about process. And getting it when it's in writing, and our attorney gets a chance to review it, I don't know if Molly does these or not. So, well, never mind about it. So, but to do it, there's got to be a consistent way to professionally look at legal documents that this organization is run by, with. And so I would be okay with the other ones, but at this point, the new job description needs to be thoroughly written out. Which is, as we said, just what you had said. That's the part that would need changing.
So Allison, could you read to me or paraphrase?
Recall? Yes, so I would.
Looking at
My job description.
the piece for education and experience.
So let me just get to the job description
And I
here.
apologize for not writing it as you shared it
you?
with us earlier. I was intent on listening.
Hold on, let me go back and find it. I can recall it in my head, but I just want to double check the language here. So we could do bachelor's degree in a related field plus a minimum of 5 years prior relevant experience. And then, but I would keep the language in there about prior experience in buildings and grounds maintenance, including supervisory experience, or an equivalent combination of education and experience sufficient to perform the essential functions of the job. So in essence, we're removing the or high school diploma part. Does that still convey, James, what you were?
I think so.
Okay. And removing that high school diploma part and the discussion about adding the GED then keeps the language consistent with the other job descriptions and how we list the minimum education and experience.
So a business degree in a related field, we've eliminated engineering, business.
Bachelor's degree. Did you
Or
say business
bachelor's
degree?
degree.
Bachelor's degree. In a related field.
All right.
Plus a minimum
Plus a
of-
minimum of 5 years prior relevant education or experience in buildings and grounds maintenance, including supervisory experience or an equivalent combination of education and experience sufficient to perform the essential functions of the job. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the job descriptions with that change in our Director of Facilities position. Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion dies.
I would like a motion to, make a motion to send this job description back to Human Resources to get the changes in writing, and we'll have it before us at the next meeting for approval, review and approval.
And about the other job description?
Oh, the other job descriptions, I'm okay with them.
All right, so
That's
this,
probably not the right proposal.
so this is a motion to approve the job descriptions as written, with the exception of the Director of Facilities, which would be sent back to HR for a written description. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Madam Chair. I would just like to make a request that in the future, when you have concerns about an agenda item, please talk to me first so that we can address them before the meeting. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate your work, Allison. Item 7, Auditor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go back to that item here. This is for the Poplar River Bridge replacement. We've been talking about this since the flood of 2022, and that the Snowmobile bridge went out. And we put in bid notices for replacement of the bridge on June 15th and 22nd in the newspaper and our other sources. And we received one bid from Northland Constructors. We expected a bid from them. We did receive no others. So this is a request to approve the bid by Northland Constructors to replace that Poplar River Snowmobile Bridge in Lutzen at a lump sum price of $492,500, subject to completion of a construction contract. In here, I say that the proposal meets the qualification and selection requirements of the request for proposal issued by the county, and should qualify that statement. Since there was one bid, didn't really follow that entire numbering system, since there's no one to compare and come to a final number on it. But the key points in those qualifications were, do they have the experience of building bridges like this? And in their response, they listed a number of bridges, not all of them, I'm sure, that they've done in the Northeast part of the state, of varying sizes, some a little bit smaller, some much larger. They also have done a lot of other projects for the highway department, and checking with the highway department, they give them a very strong rating in all aspects, in their construction, their follow-up, their all aspects. They're very, very well thought of company. The financial implications, so we have obtained a grant from the DNR for $221,000, a trail improvement grant, and there's a $150,000 grant from the Federal Recreation Trails Program. Each of those require match, $55,000 and $50,000 for each of those. There was a recent announcement that there's $100,000 from Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation. $100,000 for this project also. They came before us last year, and also got a $51,000 revolving loan fund loan if they need it to cover some of the match. They expect donations to help cover the match. They listed for us about $10,000 in donations. We've received 7 through the county. They may have received others. The ones that came through the county are because they came through gambling funds, and Lutzen Trail Breakers can't receive those directly. They had to come through us. They may have received others. The town of Lutzen has pledged $20,000. Lutzen Trail Breakers have also pledged $30,000 of their cash funds. Those donations, those estimates of donations and the town, et cetera, more than covers the matches for the Federal Trails Program and the Trail Improvement Grant. And I don't know the details of IRRB yet. That was a recent announcement that they received that. So we might approve, this is approving their bid, and following this is then the construction contract, and you may approve this and then approve the construction contract. If you want to see Lutzen's final numbers on their match requirement, we don't have their current completed list from them, and I would suggest we might want to see that before we finalize that contract. So I'm thinking you would do that you might accept the bid now and then make the contract subject to seeing all their final match numbers, what they've actually received.
Any questions for Auditor Powers? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the Poplar River Snowmobile Trail Bridge replacement bid to Northland Constructors.
I will second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner White. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right.
And did you want to say that out loud again? How you want the motion to be read?
So it would, from what I understand, it would be for the contract, subject to the final list that we would receive from Lutzen. Is that correct?
And it may not be the final, because they're still trying to gain donations, and they may not even go through with the loan, with the revolving loan fund. That's a backup. They'd prefer to have donations and their own cash and et cetera to cover it, and not do that, but that's there if they need to. They just haven't executed it yet, and it's there to cover matches as needed. And I don't know the details of IRRR, so let's say get a current list of what they know and what they expect, because I don't know that all of their fundraising is done, and it'll be done. It does need to, so I'd say get a current list of their funding sources for match, and then, of course, this also has to, is subject to the final review of the county attorney, because it's just gone out to Northland Constructors, and maybe they already have, but they'll be responding. There may be, small administrative changes that you're going to allow her to make.
So is there a motion?
I'll make the motion. What he said.
All right,
I
subject
tried
to,
to-
subject to a current list.
Current
and-
list of Lutzen Trail Breakers match for the grants, and the county attorney's adjustments, what do you want to call that, for final approval of the county chair for any changes that minor changes that may be suggested and are discussed between herself and Northland Constructors.
So Commissioner Johnson has made a motion. Is there support?
I don't know if I helped.
I'll support that.
All right, we have a motion and support. Anything further? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We take 3 minutes. You can just move ahead without me.
We need to take a little break.
Should we take a 5-minute break at this point?
5.
And then we will return at 10:47.
Just need it.
Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. We are on item number 8A, which is our SCA Cooperative Agreement for the Highclimber Rehabilitation. And we'll return the program over to Attorney Hicken.
Well, thank you. This is a follow-up agenda item to the last regular board meeting. You approved a contract to Dirt Candy LLC for rehabilitation of the Highclimber mountain bike trail. This project is a partnership with nonprofit Superior Cycling Association. We ask for their assistance in managing the project by they're kind of the subject matter expert on single track, sustainably built mountain bike trail. And it's in their best interest that that trail is built correctly, so they are agreeing through this contract to assist the county in supervising the project, essentially. The contract also makes it very clear that it's the county that has the authority over the project to make any changes. It's the county that has the contractual relationship with Dirt Candy, and we're not giving up any of that authority.
All right, thank
That's
you
all I
for
got.
that clarification. Are there any questions for Attorney Hicken? Any comments? If not, I would entertain a motion. Commissioner
I'd like to
White.
make an motion to approve the attached agreement between Cook County and the Superior Cycling Association Cooperative Project Management Agreement for the Highclimber Mountain Bike Trail Rehabilitation.
Thank you, Commissioner White, and I'll support that. Any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, Administrator Yorkie, some
All right.
updates for
A
us.
few updates, surprisingly or not, related to the CIP. So at the last business meeting, you authorized me to execute an agreement with BKV Group to do the master planning for the courthouse and the community center. That agreement did come back within the price ceiling of $35,000. So I did go ahead and sign that and send it back to BKV, and that's good because that is enabling Henry Pittner to actually be here tomorrow for a brief visit to the community center, because one of the most pressing questions right now is, what is the current condition of the building? And what are the prospects for keeping the entire structure as it is now versus adding on to it or replacing it or what? I mean, there are different directions that we could go. But Henry's going to be here tomorrow to look at the building with Brian and Sarah and myself. Sarah Waddle and myself. And just kind of get a handle on, what are the opportunities? And that information will be important in deciding how we proceed with the roofing project. So we do have roofing bids for the community center. I've shared those with a few of you. And so that ball is rolling. And then we also have a series of sessions similar to the ones that we had earlier this year. And I did, when I shared the information with the board, I did request that I'd like Commissioner White, if the board agrees, to again be appointed to serve on that group, because I think your background in construction is really useful in that discussion. And so if there is agreement that Commissioner White serve in that role again, I think that'd be really helpful.
I would make a motion to have Commissioner White serve in that role. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Can I vote?
Yes.
Aye. All right, you got her.
And my background in construction, it's been just hanging around job sites for the last 40 years. So
That's
I have no
background.
degrees, but I can talk the language sometimes.
We appreciate your experience, and if you look at other members of the board, we feel you would be best to serve in that capacity.
I can speak the language of construction workers
Thank you.
when things don't
Careful.
go wrong.
Careful.
So that's great, thank you for that. So we do have a series of meetings that are described in the proposal that I shared with the board. Jana's working to get those scheduled, and the process is going to be over about a period of 12 weeks, and same as with the last process, at the end of it, we'll come to the board with a presentation on the work that BKV has done and some potential options for moving forward on redesign or renovation of the courthouse and/or the community center. So that is moving forward. Again, I mentioned that the information that we're going to get from Henry will be instructive in terms of how to move forward on the re-roofing of the community center. We have gotten a bid on fixing the chimney at the Colville Town Hall, and that's just for the masonry work. So we still would need to have like a flue insert put in, and we're waiting on a couple of bids for that. But the bid for the tuck pointing is reasonable. I think they're probably going to have to take off the top few layers and kind of replace those. But anyway, so that's moving forward, and hopefully as soon as we get those flue insert bids, we can move forward on that. The other thing, the roof on the museum, we have submitted shingle specs to the State Historic Preservation Office. We're waiting for feedback on that, so we can move forward on that project. Likely, we're not going to have feedback for another possibly 4 weeks. And I'm not comfortable suggesting that we just hope that things turn out well and just go ahead with the roofing project. I'm not sure that's a good way to proceed. So I do want to have approval from SHPO before we move forward on that project. So those are kind of the big pieces of the CIP implementation. There are a lot of my time in the last week or two has been spent doing budget planning stuff. We have our first budget work session Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock. We are going to live stream that, and that will be here in this room. And Brady and I are getting information together. I've reached out to a few of you on kind of what resources and what information you want to be considered in our work sessions. The first of which, again, will be Thursday, and then we also have one at the Committee of the Whole on Tuesday next week. That's the 16th at 10:30. So a lot of work going into that, and then there are other things going on in the background that are not ready for prime time, but that we'll likely be talking about soon. That's all I got.
All right, thank you so much. We'll move on to updates from commissioners. Commissioner Johnson.
Quite ready, sorry. I wasn't
Not ready either.
Let's see, public health meeting yesterday, talking about public health grants. It's been kind of crazy. Yeah, LEO. I really don't have a whole lot to report right now since our last meeting.
All right, thank you. Commissioner White.
Oh, of course, I don't know where my notes are on this. Active living and healthy housing, those two different attended those meetings via Zoom. There were not many people in attendance at all. There were 4 in one and 5 in the other. It was 4th of July week, you know. But there was good discussion, and I left my notes on that at home, so I'll just tell you it was good discussion. And then the big one was yesterday at the Hub, and they have succeeded in getting their Otto Bremer grant application in. And two questions. Well, one big thing that happened was they were visited yesterday by Chris O'Brien from CCLEP. And the Hub is being considered as a possible model project for energy improvements. And so they're excited about that because they're a building where you could do a lot of different things and make it better. They're talking about one question came up was the relationship between the county and the Hub, At one point, members thought that the county owned the building, or they they paid somebody that worked there. They had a paid employee at the senior center.
Yeah, the county did have a paid employee. I can tell you exactly when, 20 years ago. And, yeah.
And why did that change? It was just a curiosity question.
Yeah, I think probably because, we didn't have that kind of direct involvement. I think it was considered unusual that role was filled by a county employee at that time, and we don't have that kind of relationship with other nonprofit entities.
So the Historical Society we have someone that sits on the Historical Society board.
I do.
So that's different.
Right.
And that is
But
Not
we
an
own
employee.
that building.
right.
That's one of the
Okay, so
differences.
and you never owned.
We never owned the hub.
Okay, that was a big question. And then there was discussion about the Public Health and Human Service grant, questioning the format, that it limits characters, so many characters in answering. And if you make a mistake or you can't finish it, you don't get to save anything. I'm only saying what the chair said because she did the grant, and she said, and then I have all these problems, I can only do so many characters, and then she tried to do it in Word and then put it in, but then her Word doesn't count her number of characters. So anyways, it was a question about why is that format selected to be used for the Public Health and Human Services.
And I just say we've used it in the past, and we've used it for the Council on Aging.
Oh, yes.
And it worked.
Well,
So-
it's been the same issue all the time. like-
Yeah.
Or at least this person has done the grants before, but I don't know why, but there was a struggle this time around, more than ever.
I'll give it a try with a pretend grant and see
Okay.
what I come up with.
And there will be, they talked about fundraisers, Philly cheese, chili feed with chili hot dogs coming up in November, and then there's all sorts of different fundraisers. So they're doing well. They need 2 new members, though. If anybody is interested in sitting on the board for the Council on Aging, it's a very positive, hardworking group of people. I mean, it's an energizing group to be around. That's the end of that report.
Thank you much. So Commissioner Johnson and I participated with the Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee, and as you know from today's consent agenda, Josh Engelmann will be serving as a District 3 representative. We've been without someone since January, and so we're very excited to have him join our group. For CCLEP, we did talk about the Cook County Council on Aging, and even 2 years ago, there was discussion about windows and upgrades in lighting because their energy bills were so incredibly high. And so what's nice is with all the rebates and the IRA and everything, they're great opportunities for that building and for that organization. So that's really exciting. And Chris O'Brien has done a really nice job of communicating and working with them. And CCLEP also is looking at all the different initiatives that we have, and we are having, unfortunately, to prioritize those because we don't have an executive director, and Chris O'Brien has been serving in that role as a board member for 6 months now, 7 months. We are realizing we can't do everything. We can't follow through with our mission and juggle all the balls in the air that we have. So we are in the process of using a force matrix to force us to prioritize and direct our energies. And so at the end of July, we'll be able to better discuss what our direction will be for the future. We had our appeals and equalization meeting. I want to thank Assessor Thompson for putting together a very well-organized process. And he has developed a really nice trifold for the public. I've been distributing these at Lake Association meetings. They have stacks of them outside of the assessor's office, but it talks about when different areas in the county are going to be assessed, when they're going to get their visit every 5 years, and just important information and updates about property taxes. So I would encourage people to take a look, stop by the assessor's office and pick up one of those brochures. Firewise met, and we're continuing to deal with a lot of dead and dying trees. As we know, spruce bedworm has expanded pretty dramatically in the county, and brush piles are filling up already, getting pushed up, and so we're really working not only with Firewise, but Soil and Water is working on spruce bedworm as well, and so that will continue to be an area of focus. The Poplar Lake Area Association had their meeting last Saturday, and Firewise and University of Minnesota Extension, along with myself, were there. We talked about everything from mitigating your property and making sure your property is ready in the event of a wildfire, to talking about planning and preparation. We met with the group for about an hour and a half towards the end of their meeting, and they opened their Lake Association meeting up in the end to the larger public, so that was really nice. And last night, we had the Devil Track Lake Association, which met, and Soil and Water was there as well, so we had a lot of nice updates from county departments, and they really appreciated that. And that would be the updates that I have for us today. We have a number of meetings coming up throughout the month of July, as you can see. No correspondence or memos at this point in July. And then some wonderful staff anniversaries. And we have Andrew Dahlstrom at the Recycling Center for 2 years. Christina Matson, who's joined Public Health and Human Services, also 2 years ago. Matt Neshim with our Highway Department for 2 years. Sean Smith, also with the Highway Department for a couple of years. Plamen Dimitrov for 6 years in PHHS now. Britta Moose with our Law Enforcement Center for 7 years. Dagmara Smith with PHHS for 8. Chris Schrupp with the Law Enforcement Center, serving as a deputy now for 11 years. Mitch Everson, Land Services, 14 years. Attorney Hicken, thanks for your 17 years of service. And Brady Powers for 33 years.
No, he always trumps me
It,
in July.
it seems like yesterday.
And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Two different questions.
James,
First,
what time
pull it
is
down.
Henry coming tomorrow?
This is that fire